I'm going to echo, and then I'm going to ascend. And that was a lot of lava bursts. Hey everyone, this is Tiqqle, and in this video we're going to go over the latest changes for Elemental Shaman in Shadowlands. This latest beta build has brought a new life to Ascendance for both Enhance and Elemental. Enhance is in a different video. Check the description below. This is about Elemental. And guess what, baby? We're doing damage on the press of Ascendance. So what I'll do is, first of all, let's go over the changes, and then I will go through an example and show you how it works. There's also changes to Legendaries that make things much more smooth. Thank God. The mythic rotation is so much more smooth that we're not chasing the freaking Earthquake Dragon. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Number 1, Aftershock. Aftershock was previously, you gotta remember, we were in the beta, we were doing Fulmination, we were doing a lot of other crazy stuff, but it's now back to the way it was back in BFA. Earthshock and Earthquake have a 25% chance to refund all Maelstrom, meaning potentially you could spam those Earthquakes, or you could spam those Earthshocks, kind of back to the RNG talent it was, you know, which is good, and this maybe not as good depending on what legendary you're going to be going, because there's a particular legendary around Earthquake, I'm sure you've heard about it already, that is doing so much damage for us. Now the next one is really the biggest one. It's a significant change. Number 1, Ascendance transformed into a Flame Ascendant for 15 seconds, replacing Chain Lightning with Lava Beam, etc. This is the basic stuff, but this is the big thing because it's still on the GCD. When you transform into a Flame Ascendant, instantly cast Lava Burst at all enemies affected by your Flame Shock, and refresh the Flame Shock on all of those targets by 18 seconds. Refreshing your Flame Shocks, Lava Bursting them, pretty darn good, especially on a press, it spends a global, etc. There's also, so I'm, number 1, I'm glad that this happened. There's also opportunities in PvP. You can see this being pretty useful for control of lava potentially. I think Blizzard might be finally making control of lava potentially viable in PvP. In PvE, you can see this as being some way to AoE down a multi-target boss fight, or other AoE type scenarios where you can spread your Flame Shock pretty well. Now with Flame Shock still on a cooldown, it's a little hard to spread that Flame Shock around. I did do a Mythic Plus with this on. It was okay, but it wasn't quite what Enhance has. When you press it, it does AoE immediately, right? So this is dependent on your Flame Shocks being out there, and you have other things that are doing a lot of damage, like your Earthquake, so you have to prioritize there. So that's where I think this is going to be in a particularly niche spot for an LE, but for Enhance, it's you know, a little bit different. Now, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's not, they could have made it erupt, whatever. It's fine. It's cool. We'll show you why it's so cool. But anyway, so prolonged fights with big mobs with multi-target, I think this could be pretty darn good. Now, Echoing Shock, it says, causing your next direct, they got rid of direct, damaging your healing spell to be cast 1 second later. They did this to allow you to echo Earthquakes again. Welcome back home, honey. I haven't tested it to see that if it works from you're using while you're, you know, plus 250% from your legendary yet, but you can, it's possible to do it again. Back in the alpha way months ago, when you echoed an Earthquake, it was not, the second Earthquake wouldn't take on the same buffs as the first Earthquake, but we'll have to confirm. Let me know down in the comments if you've already seen this in play. We'll test it out maybe on in game right now. Next, Elemental Blast. Elemental Blast has it's like the forgotten child. It's like the orphan ability that has gone through the ringer. And Fulmination was in a particular place, and, you know, it worked its way through things. It was eventually a spender of Maelstrom, and now it's a generator of Maelstrom. Generates 30 Maelstrom, which is actually a ton, giving you its secondary stat, which is a percentage based, which is great. If it overloads, you're going to get a whole lot of Maelstrom, and I'm actually pretty happy with where this sits. The other thing to note, and it's not listed here, is that Elemental Blast, if you take it, will proc Surge of Power. This is an undocumented change, and I want to thank the Twitch chat for pointing this out to me. So Twitch chat, you rock. Thank you so much. While I was testing it, they're like, check it out, and yeah. So anyway, so if you go Elemental Blast will proc your Surge of Power, which means you can get an extra Lightning Bolt, you can reduce the cooldown on your Flame Melee, or you can spread that Flame Shock more for those Ascendances. So that's definitely a good thing and a cool thing, and I'm glad to see maybe it's going to finally get a home. Now, next up, Ice Fury. Ice Fury, they only thing they did is they made it so your 4 Frost Shocks will be generating 8 Maelstrom a pop, which is good. Another way to generate Maelstrom, especially because that's the way it used to be. and it actually feels better that way in my mind. So that's good. Now, static discharge excessive energy from your lightning shield. This is a new talent as of Shadowlands. They made it, it was for some reason scaling off attack damage, but they made it scale off of a spell power. We'll show you how much damage it does, but overall it still doesn't, it's kind of a weird, it kind of sits in a weird place. It's still on GCD, requires you to use lightning shield. It's kind of weird, especially because the lava burst is doing so much damage, and we love the lava burst damage. But those are the changes on paper. That's about it. There are some changes to Legendaries that I will be pointing out later in the video, so make sure to stay tuned. And I know about 75% of you are not subbed to the channel yet, and I would love to convince you to sub to this channel by the end of this video, so I hope you guys will. Now let's go ahead and go into some of the testing. Some of the testing here will kind of maybe surprise you. I'm on my Necrolord Elemental Shaman right now. The reason for that is Primordial Wave. Primordial Wave, I'll show you what it does if you don't know. When you put a Flame Shock up, you know, okay, it's Flame Shock, whatever. But when you Primordial Bolt Wave here, I'll put a Flame Shock on both the targets. I'm gonna Primordial Wave this target, and then I get a buff. My next Lava Burst will hit everyone affected by Flame Shock. So now a Lava Burst, I Lava Burst the target, and then it hits, and then there's a second wave that goes out that hits all the targets that have Flame Shock. That's pretty nice. Sounds a lot like Ascendance. Interesting, isn't it? Yes, it is. Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to show you how that can work together to do a lot of frickin' damage. So that's what we're going to do next. The other thing I want to point out really quick is that there is a legendary. This legendary says casting Lava Burst has a 5% chance to activate Ascendance for 6 seconds. Yes, when you get this proc, when you activate Ascendance, it does. It instantly pops into Ascendance, and when you instantly pop into Ascendance, it shoots out lava bursts at any target affected by Flame Shock. So you're going to see that in action, and we're going to do it on all these different targets. I'm going to have to use Flame Ally to get my spread going on pretty good, and then I'm going to show you what could potentially happen in terms of this. Now, I'm not trying to say it's more viable than it is. I think there's going to be some limitations here, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to Flame Shock the heck out of all these things, right? So we're going to Flame Shock. We got 2 Flame Shocks out. 3 Flame Shocks out. We're just going to keep going, right? 4 Flame Shocks. I think we might be able to get 2 more out. And then we're going to... Okay, it's going to happen fast. Okay, we're going to get 1 more. Okay, we're going to Primordial. Okay. I'm going to Echo, and then I'm going to Ascend. And that was a lot of lava bursts, wasn't it? I'm going to slow it down to show you quite how many. But the other thing, I'll do that in a second, because right now what I'll show you as well is as I get these procs and as this happens, I'm already There's a mana issue right now with this build, but it is definitely pretty cool. The fact that we can get double spams of lava bursts on an AoE basis is very cool. I did use Echoing Shock. It only echoes 1 that I send out there, but that's okay too. Let's go ahead and we're going to keep on using our abilities. I want to show you that Ascendance prop, right? So we're kind of waiting for the proc to happen here. I'm going to Echo this Lava Burst, keeping those Flame Shocks rolling. The more Flame Shocks I have, the more procs that I'm going to get. And we're kind of waiting for it to happen, right? So we'll Primordial here. And then it procced, and then it iterated again. So I Lava Burst once, and then it procced, and then it procced again. So I got the double proc off the Primordial. So we're getting multiple waves of lava bursts going, which is actually pretty cool. So why is this happening? I'm just going to recap it one more time. Number 1, I'm Flame Shocking a lot of different things. Then I'm using Primordial Wave, which makes it so my next lava burst will hit all of the targets hit by Flame Shock. Then I'm Echoing, so that I'll echo one of my lava bursts just for fun, so I get another one out there. And then I'm Ascendancing. Ascendance is casting a lava burst, which is considered a lava burst by Primordial. So I'm lava bursting, and it's hitting all the targets hit by Flame Shock. And then Primordial procs after that and hits everyone with a Flame Shock with another lava burst. And then Echo throws 1 more on the top as kind of the cherry. But that's what's happening, and that's how you're able to do a huge burst. But as you might have noticed, it took me a while to get the setup going. And that is why this is still kind of an interesting play, because you really are going to have to set it up in a way. And we're going to just Yep, see it there. I didn't get the proc yet from the Legendary, but it's an interesting play because these targets are going to have to be alive long enough for you to do that type of setup. Now, you might be able to do 3 targets much easier, particularly maybe it's in arena, but in general, it takes a little bit more setup. There's the proc. You saw it proc, and it hit another lava burst, went out immediately, which is pretty satisfying. So you saw this lava burst, and then these 2 procced immediately, and then this one was the one after that, right? So it's definitely cool. It's definitely a unique way to play, and with this Legendary, with Primordial Wave, with Ascendance, a lot of synergy happening, which is pretty interesting. There is another Legendary that I will show you. It's it buffs the lava burst damage by 30%, which is also, you're like, wait, what? Yeah, so if you use that and then you do this burst, you're going to get 30% more damage output as well. So that could be potentially a very good one. In PvP, PvE, you know, I'm really seeing this as a cat, like almost like a, I don't know, it's going to require some setup, but it's going to potentially be a ton of AoE pressure. So that's just, you know, the big thing. And so that is pretty much the main change with Ascendance. Now what I want to do, and I'm using Primordial Wave, it's pretty tricky, pretty showy, but now what I want to do is I want to show you the changes to the Legendaries that are not mentioned in the changes. All right, back on this boy. You know him, you love him. Now this is the new change to that Legendary you were just kind of looking at. This is, I didn't see it mentioned anywhere, but it says when you cast Earthshock or Elemental Blast, this is when you get Lava Surge and increases your damage of your next Lava Burst by 30%. It actually is not your next, it's actually a buff when you spend it. So if I go ahead and use Elemental Blast, you're going to see this is actually a 15-second buff, and so I could use that with either Ascendance or Primordial Wave to get some increased damage out in a pretty big way. I like now that Elemental Blast seems to be a trigger for things that is a builder. It actually builds a ton of Maelstrom. When I cast it, it builds 30, potentially more when they overload, and I really like it. The other big change, and I didn't realize this until, again, Twitch chat showed me, was that casting Earthshock or Elemental Blast will now proc Surge of Power, which is a great quality of life thing in PvE. I really like the fact that if I want to get these procs, like, for example, a Legendary or Surge of Power, I don't need to use a spender and then potentially another spender to take full advantage of it. Another change, and the reason I'm saying it exactly the way I just did, is because the biggest change is to this Legendary. When you cast Earthshock or Elemental Blast, your next Earthquake will deal 250% additional damage. The reason this is such a big deal is what this was before is it was just Earthshock. So you had to generate 60 Maelstrom, spend it for Earthshock, generate 60 more, spend it for Earthquake. What you had to do is either weave in Echoing Shock, Chain Lightnings, or Stormkeeper to be able to churn out these Earthquakes after dropping down below. The problem there was that in Mythics, you weren't able to get that damage out before the mobs were dead unless you were in a very high plus key and they were doing a very big pulls. Again, I think Elemental Shaman is going to fall into a position, unless maybe this Ascendance thing fixes it, that Ellie is only going to be able to do really good damage in the huge pull arena, like the whole huge pull area of Mythic Pluses, having your tank pull massive groups. So that's what I'm a little bit concerned about. I'm not sure, maybe this is something that might be resolved by this Ascendance use, being able to potentially multi-blast people using this talent and using potentially the Legendary. I tried it out, it didn't really feel so good because, again, Flame Shocks aren't ticking long enough on things to be able to number one, worth the global at all, and then number two, to be able to get those Ascendance procs based off those casted lava bursts. If I was able to spread my Flame Shock much easier with like Liquid Magma Totem or something and get on like 6 targets, then I could start machine gunning. That would give me my 5% proc chance, and then it would make it more possible. But really, this is the only Legendary I see in Mythic Plus really viable right now. Now, maybe it'll be different with single target with Tyrannical. Haven't tested that out. I've done only up to an 18 key, but that's kind of where I'm sitting with that. PvP, we haven't really tested this out either. I've done some Ascendance. It felt okay in some circumstances, but it's very janky right now on the beta. But with that being said, I think that's about it. There's a lot of changes that have happened. Like I mentioned, echoing. I can now echo an Earthquake. We can actually quickly test to see if they're going to be a similar damage. Let's go ahead and just do that then. We're going to go ahead and generate enough Maelstrom to kind of get the job done. You know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and get this on the bar. I'm gonna have to check I'm going to have to cast Earthshock. And now we're going to have to generate enough Maelstrom again. This is the old world, right? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to use Echo. And then I'm going to use Earthquake. Now they're both hitting. Oh, no, you can see one's hitting for a lot. 2.7, one's hitting for 300. So Echoing and Earthquake will not make both Earthquakes if they're buffed by this legendary. They won't make them both equal to 250%. This is good to know because you need to be, make sure you're doing, make sure you're aware of this fact that the second Earthquake won't be buffed. Maybe it won't be worth that. Maybe it's more important to generate Maelstrom so that you can use reuse another Earthquake instead of using a double spender, right? Usually that's what I've been finding is that, echoing things that are builders or echoing Lava Burst that does huge damage is really the play. But with that being said, guys, that's about it. I wanted to go over these changes, Elemental Blast, all that. I will use, I'll use this really quick for you if you'd like to see this. This is doing the animation is cool. But the damage is listen, it's passive. But if we look on this bar, what it's compared to, how do you compare it to Echo of the Elements? Because it's doing 1k damage, right? So if I cast a Lava Burst is doing huge damage compared to that. It's doing 3.7. How can I compare Static Charge to another Lava Burst? Technically, this would be something I could use without even casting. So potentially, but if I'm getting trained, then would I even want Lightning Shield on? It does generate 5 Maelstrom now if you're hit, but you might want Earth Shield on. I don't know. It's just tough for me to still get this talent unless it were to do even probably 50% more damage in my opinion. But with that being said, those are the changes. That's what I wanted to go over with you. I want to thank you guys so much again for hanging out, checking these builds out, and we will jump back to the stream soon and see you in the next one. Guys, thank you so much again. We'll see you later. Take care. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Hit that sub button, that like button. Love you guys.